Hey, it's April from The Possible Diet. Valentine's Day is coming up, and I wanted to show you how to make heart cocoa bombs. These are hot cocoa bombs have been like a thing this year, especially during the holidays. And I found this mold at Target, and I thought, oh, I'll make heart-shaped cocoa bombs, but I'll make them low carb, so that you can indulge and feel like you're part of the party without totally throwing off your diet and your blood sugar. So for this recipe, you are going to need, I like the 365 brand of sugar-free chocolate chips. I've tried making this recipe with Lily's, and the chocolate kind of like didn't melt right and seized up, and like I wasted a whole bag of chocolate chips. So I don't recommend using Lily's for these. You will also need non-fat dry milk powder. I like Lakanto baking sweetener, the kind of like, it's sort of like halfway between granular and powdered. If you're not comfortable using artificial sweeteners so much, you can try Smart Sugar, which is actually real sugar mixed with chicory root fiber, which is a prebiotic, which goes well with cocoa, also a prebiotic. And then you're gonna need cocoa powder, and I like to put like a few sprinkles on it. I find that like the carbs that colorful sprinkles add, is really worth it. And I'm bending down right now because I want you to see my double boiler setup. So this is a pan of water that is set to simmering, and then I have a heat-proof glass bowl on top. If you have an actual double boiler, obviously that's going to be better. But for now, we're just gonna pour these right on in, and then I'll show you how I do it. So I like to pour almost all the bag in. I save a little bit, about this much, until the very, very end, and then I stir those in to help like temper the chocolate and cool it down a little. So in the meantime, I'm going to show you how to draw a stencil for the lids of the cocoa bombs, and then we'll come back when this chocolate is melted, and I'll show you how to make the actual bombs and how to fill it with our cocoa mixture. We have our tray here, and you're going to take this thing that comes with it, because it is the perfect size for the holes, and these are going to be sort of like the lids to the cocoa bombs. So you just want to take this as a stencil. If the toxicity of a Sharpie really freaks you out, feel free to find a non-toxic pen to use for this. And then just go down. These don't have to be perfectly aligned, but they do have to be the exact same size, because we're going to draw on these with chocolate. And I'm just going to make 9 cocoa bombs because they're very labor intensive. And they're fun to make, don't get me wrong, but similar to Christmas cookies, decorating like the first 5 is super fun, but like the last 50 of them gets exhausting. So now you have these heart templates, which are going to be your lids for the cocoa bombs. And then these are going to be the bottoms of the cocoa bombs. While our chocolate is melting, we're going to make the hot chocolate mix that's going to go into the bombs. I'm just using the recipe that's on the Bob's Red Mill bag. I'm doubling it because it makes 8 servings. So it's going to be 2/3 of a cup of our sweetener sugar substitute, and then 1 whole cup of non-fat dry milk powder. There's 1/2 cup. And then half a cup of cocoa powder. You can sift this using a sifter if you want to get really, really, retentive about clumps. Cocoa does tend to clump a little bit, but I'm just going to give it a good whisk. If you want to get super fancy, you can add like cayenne pepper or cinnamon, but I'm gonna leave this as is and let people add their own cayenne or cinnamon if they feel like it. So just give it a whisk, get most of the clumps out. Like I said, if you're really, really anal retentive and these little nuggets bother you, you can put this mixture through a sifter, but it'll generally all wash out when you add boiling water or hot milk to it, and give it a stir. I don't mind it. Okay, so there's your hot cocoa mix. Our chocolate is melted, so now I'm going to walk you through making the bombs. This chocolate is now melted. I've stirred it. If it starts to seize up, I'm sorry, you bought the wrong brand of chocolate. This is what happens. This is what happens when you use the wrong brand of chocolate. It just turns into this crumbly, awful mess. This is what your chocolate should look like. At this point, turn the stove off, get your extra bags of chips, the handful or so that you left in the bag, and stir it in. Stir it in very slowly. I honestly don't know why the Lily's just does not melt right. It must be something about stevia versus non-stevia sweetened chips or something like that. But when your chocolate is melting right, it should look like this. And you could use regular chocolate, but your cocoa bombs are not going to be low carb. The reason why these are low carb is because the chocolate that you use for the outside has sugar, alcohols, and fiber in it. So it negates the carbs that the chocolate contains. All right, so it should look like this. Smooth. Just stir it until the lumps disappear. And now we're going to take our mold and we're going to take about a spoonful. This is a little tricky doing it while I demo it to you. And we're just going to coat the inside of the mold all the way to the top. Now, you want to do this layer thin because we're going to do 2 layers. This is really important. If you try to do 1 layer of chocolate on these cocoa bombs, all the chocolate is going to sink to the bottom of the mold. And you're going to have a really thick bottom and really thin sides, and then they're going to break when you try to pop them out. So cocoa bombs take patience. This is key. If you look at any other cocoa bomb tutorial on YouTube or the internet, it says the same thing. Don't try to cheat. Don't try to do 1 layer. Be okay with 2 layers. Again, when hot milk hits this chocolate, it's going to melt it, so it's okay. So do 1 layer in each one, and then refrigerate this for about 5 to 10 minutes, and then take it out, do another layer. I'll show you what that looks like, and then refrigerate it for another 10 minutes until they're really, really solid. And while they're refrigerating, I'll show you how to make the lids. While our hearts are chilling in the fridge, we're gonna make the lids. So I have my chocolate, and I'm just gonna put a dollop in the center of each one, and then use a spoon to spread it to the edge. If you have an espresso spoon, This makes it really handy. And it's okay to go a little outside the edge, because you can just use a hot knife to kind of like trim it. Pick up a little more with your spoon. And it takes some practice to kind of like get this right. I felt like my first heart was like definitely not as good as my last one. And you want to do the hearts as fast as you can, because the chocolate's going to start to firm up. If you want to decorate the hearts, which I kind of want to do, you can get your little decorations and decorate the lids like that. So these are now mostly firmed up and they are ready for a second coating of chocolate. The sides are what's going to need it the most, because they're the ones that tend to break. If this is your first time doing this, you're going to want to make sure that you melt at least a bag and a half of chocolate. I can get it now where I can get like 9 hearts out of 1 bag, but I have to be really careful. And even then, sometimes I'll just do 8 to be safe. So just do a second coating on the inside of each one of these hearts, and then I'll see you back here. Once these are ready, they're all hard, then you're going to pop them out very gently, just like that. Then you're going to take your hot cocoa mix, fill up the cup, just about that much. You're going to peel off your lid. Get a little spoonful of chocolate that you have left over. Dab it along the edge of the lid. This is your glue. And pop your lid on. Just like that. Don't worry if it's not perfect. We're going to use a hot knife to trim it in a minute. One trick, if you have one that looks like this, that's just got like way too many holes to glue together, is you have a warmed saucepan and you just kind of gently press it against the saucepan to even those edges out. You can't do this too much because you eventually have to like clean the saucepan, otherwise you just have like burned chocolate on it, but that will even out your cup so that it can accept the lid and be even. In order to even out the edges on these, I have a pot of simmering water and I'm just dipping a knife in it until the knife gets hot. I'm gonna wipe the knife and then just very gently use the knife to smooth out the edges. Just like that. Be careful not to press too hard. You don't want to melt through the cocoa bomb. As the knife cools off, just wet it again, dry it onto towel, and go back over. And again, this is all going to melt in like a hot cup of milk, so the level of perfection that you're seeking to attain can just as easily be achieved with a finger coated in chocolate. But if you just want to smooth it out a little, a hot knife will usually do the trick. And there you have it. I'm going to heat up some milk and then you can see how these turn out. Here we have our chocolate bomb. Put it in there. I have here some hazelnut milk that I've warmed up. You can use regular milk, you can use non-fat milk. Remember, this already has powdered milk, so you can actually just use boiling water if you want. But I find that hazelnut milk is nice. It gives it some richness. You can also use almond milk, but here it goes. Cocoa bomb kind of dissolves. And again, because this is homemade, it's not going to dissolve, you know, quite as perfectly as a box mix, but you know, it is all natural. You can explain all of the ingredients. It's just really, really simple. This powder is not, you know, filled with preservatives, so that is a trade-off, but there's our chocolate bomb.